Hello Minecraft fans and fellow Christians. Today, I'll be covering custom NPCs. How to create your own custom character. Let's begin. Now sadly, I only know how to use the first 3 items in all this. The rest require some kind of scripting. Well, except for maybe that copy block or something like that, but anyway. But let's get right to this. Winter. Okay, let's say that you want him to be named John, for example. And you can decide to either show the name, hide the name, if you want a couple dozen, just like John or something like that, or to only be showing attacking. And then title, well, that's listed beneath the name, assuming that you want it shown. Let's say you want him to be King John or something like that. Now, if you want to edit, like say have a beard or something along those lines, okay, you can choose that along with the color. And although with a number of entities, you won't be able to edit the parts or the scale. And yes, you can choose even other things that aren't exactly, well, normally considered living. You can also choose from entities from mods. Now, I quite haven't explained the Quark mod yet, but I'll get to it later. Now, let's keep John human for now. But if you want to rotate him around and see individual parts, you can do that too. And here's how you go back to your previous menu. Now, let's see John at size 10. Rather big, ain't he? Maybe I should call him Goliath. Anyway, let's change him back to size 5. I don't want him busting through the roof. Now, numerous changes won't be able to take effect until after I actually exit by clicking just this button. Sorry, escape keys won't work. And another thing, you can actually edit his skin too and get some rather interesting ones, but I tried getting my brother to add a custom skin. For some reason it didn't work. He manually changed one skin to look like another for our quest. I was considering maybe making him mad, but then changed my mind to when it didn't exactly work. Now this. The capes are acting up. They're going all over the place practically, so I won't be able to illustrate those very well. Now the overlay. Okay. You can sort of see the purple eyes. They're probably made for a bigger head or something along those lines. And you can delete these if you don't like it anymore. But if you know the directory, in which I really haven't bothered with that, you can actually edit it, and if it's in the direct custom NPC directory, then that'll just make it easier. Now the living animation I haven't really changed to see any drastic effects, but it's easy to see the visible part being visible or not, or just partially and looking something like a ghost. Now, if you want him to be a boss and say have a blue boss bar, then okay, you can have that too, or red or so forth. You get the idea. Now, he wouldn't be a boss if he had way more health, for example, and the aggressive range. But I've tried making it bigger than 64, but for some reason 64 seems to be the limit. And another thing, if you want him to act like an undead, that'll help sell some other features later, and or even arthropod. That way the appropriate enchantments would be affecting him, like say smite effects, undead, and Bane of Arthropods would affect that too. Although I suggest you keep him normal if you're intending for that. Now respawn. If he's a NPC you want to keep around, yeah, sure, keep it as yes. You can also set it to only respawning at day, respawning at night, or none at all. I'm not sure what naturally does, and I may not want to find out. Now hide the buy. I would suggest yes, so that you don't have a bunch of them, a bunch of same NPCs buys going around or anything of that sort. Now melee options. Now this is one of those things where it doesn't matter if your diamond sword does 100 damage. Until this is changed to 100 damage, that it won't change at all. Similar with these three. And if that same diamond sword has fire aspect, it won't be applied until you actually tell it to apply fire, or poison, or any of these others. And that's sort of similar with the accuracy and among other such things of the bow. There are some bows that are supposed to be seeker bows that are supposed to have 100% accuracy. And these affect the delay between when he reloads and so forth. Now the fire sound. Let's say you want to make some kind of blaze. Okay. You would have to go down to the entity section and you can play, and I'll be pressing enter on my keyboard. Okay, it doesn't work, obviously. Although for some reason it doesn't always seem to work when I double click. Okay, now it took. Sometimes it acts funny that way, but anyway. I would suggest that you leave it as yes, and well, I think that just adds some brains behind the NPC or something like that. Now projectile type. Now Tinker's construct adds some, well, basically a certain amount of attack per certain projectiles, but technically you could just simply add the projectile damage to the total damage in the ranged options just to make it simpler. And this affects whether or not the image floating through midair is 3D or 2D. Spins just makes a projectile spin midair. If it's a bullet or something, just keep it as no. Or just keep it as yes if it's something like an arrow. Sticks just makes whether or not it sticks in you, whether like you got hit by a bow and arrow or something like that. Okay, has gravity. If it's a bullet or something like that, you may want to choose no. Accelerate keeps going at a faster rate of speed. Okay, there are different sizes of explosion. Get the idea. And similar here as to the effects for the sword. And you can choose amplified or not. Okay, I forgot that little detail. You can amplify the strength of a given effect. Anyway, back to this. Okay, trail type. You can make it look sort of like it's a certain projectile, like say, let's go back to the blaze example. If you wanted it to be shooting flames, okay, add smoke. But if you wanted it to be, say, some kind of magician, then okay, try and make a real tiny projectile. The size won't go beneath 5, sadly, so that's not a go. And you can make it look fancy if you try real hard. Okay, resistance. Okay, this is rather straightforward. 0 is normal. And if you give him, say, 100% here, then knockback won't affect him at all. If you give him negative 100%, he'll get basically double the amount of damage otherwise affected. Okay, let's continue. Now let's say that you want him to be immune to fire like a blaze. You can do that. And pretty much these are obvious, I suppose. Health regen. Okay. When he's not being attacked, that affects how much he heals. And how much he's healed during, well, fighting. Okay. You can have him attack or panic and run away in fear, I suppose, from enemies being found. I'll explain how they distinguish enemies a little later. Retreat, nothing. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, break down doors like a zombie. There are super zombies, as it's put, that can break down doors. The maximum possibility for a super zombie spawning is on the hard mode. Or you can just simply have them open up like a neighbor coming to give you a pie or something like that. Can swim? Yes or no. Okay, shelter from darkness if he's like, say, a villager or something. Or shelter from sunlight if he's a zombie or something. Must see target. Okay. If you haven't already noticed, something like, say, a skeleton, when it shoots you, only shoots you when your head is visible to it. Or if you're actually, well, not using an invisibility potion. And this, well, okay, yes or no to that too. Movement. This is where you actually tell it how to move around. Wandering or moving path. Sorry, scripting. I don't have any knowledge of that. And you can just simply have him wandering around. But for now, I'll just simply have standing so I can edit him as I wish and show. And you can have him flying. For example, if you were making him a bird or something like that. Swimming. You get the idea. And lying around. I think you get the idea. Oh, this affects how he rotates around if he's looking around at something or another. And this affects whether or not he actually stops when, well, you're trying to talk to him, essentially. You have to right click him if he's going to respond at all. And yes, this affects whether or not he actually interacts with other NPCs. Okay, avoids it. Water like Enderman or something like that. Oh, let's say that you're still editing and you have him wandering around. Well, if you have this on, he'll return to a very spot that you, well, right-clicked in order to start creating him and so forth. For example, I created him on this glowstone piece. He walked over that way. Okay. Once I right-clicked on him with this wand, he would immediately return back to the spot once I clicked the X up here. Now, leap at target, I would suggest you keep this off normally, because it looks sort of odd the times I tried using it. Now, rush and dodge, well, rush seemed like something I would rather use for the, well, hand-to-hand combat. And dodge, I don't really use that much, y'all. Hit and run seemed perfect for archers or gunman, depending on how you viewed it. I didn't. Well, I paused it. Okay, let's say that he can ambush or stalk and so forth. Now, inventory. Yes, this is the armor section, sword, gun, bow, whatever, and ammunition section, and shield. Now, here, this program is a little literal. If you were to put a Thompson submachine gun here, whatever you put here, and I mean whatever you put here, would be shot straight out of the barrel of a gun. If I wanted blocks of emeralds shot out of the barrel of the gun, that would be the case. So, case in point, if you're going to have an ammunition shot, you need to put the bullet, arrow, whatever that's going to actually be shot. And this is where you actually will adjust the chance of something being dropped or not. So let's say that this guy's a mercenary. Okay, he'll drop the very thing that he was used to, well, get hired, or his expected pay. And as you might have guessed, this just affects how much experience you're likely to get from him being killed. And this just affects what actually he does to get items picked up in his inventory. Okay, here's his jobs. Trader, let's say that you want him to sell the Slink modifier from Biscraft. That happens to only be creative mode only, and you can adjust the price as you wish. You could even make him sell it for a piece of dirt if you so chose. And now sadly, so far I've only managed to figure out how to get him to spawn in the very way that you created him in. So you'd have to have creative mode to create these guys, essentially. Unless someone happened to always spawn them in for you, and they create some kind of map. Now follower. I haven't quite explored this. I normally just made them wander around and trade for what I wanted. And these I believe will take the place, well, have their place taken by the actual number of days that you hired them to follow you, or your actual name. And bank, I'll get to that a little bit later, or at least what I understand of it. Transporter, as far as I know, just transports items. Mailman requires scripting. Companion whip means work in progress. Dialogue. Okay. Here is where you make them say hi, or whatever it is that you want them to say to you and other people or other NPCs even. And the bard, you can just simply select such sounds that are already there, or, well, these two. I think you get the idea somewhat there. Beacon. This is where you can choose effects from, well, from the mods I've got so far, and among other such things. Effect range, speed, potency, so forth. Okay, let's say that you want your custom NPC to actually be someone that helps you defend a place. This is the job. You select either all monsters and possibly attack creepers, and even attack animals if you so choose. If you wanted to get rid of one, you've never done this sort of thing before, just select one, and voila, it's moved back over here, and the rest can be done. This moves everything back, and this moves everything to the other side. And if it wasn't obvious, this is what he isn't targeting, and what he will actually target. Okay, you can set him to give certain items within here, and the time it takes it before he decides to give you something else. And followers, something like before, but apparently it's part of the quest system that can be set up somehow. Okay, he can spawn other NPCs or creatures. I already have several that I decided to create, but for now I'll leave them be. Conversation again, sort of like before. Chunk lower. You probably remember those chunk lowers I mentioned in my Ancient Warfare video. It seems as though they just work the same sort of way as this. Puppet, haven't exactly bothered with that since I haven't really needed any puppets before. Builder, I think that requires scripting or something. And this you just affect what he actually does with waveforms. Lines in dialogue, how he talks. Night, what's actually... I'm not certain what this actually does though. Scenes, again, this partially is related to scripting. Okay, now I mentioned how you decide who's an enemy. If he's friendly, then he's basically in the same faction that you're labeled as. Aggressive, about as aggressive as zombies all the way up to a dragon. Neutral, just like an Enderman or zombie pigman even. And here is where you decide whether or not he actually attacks somebody. And let's say John down the road is being attacked by one of the aggressives. Okay, you want him to go defend Joe down the road? Okay, click yes. Now this, okay, let's say that you can get 10 points to friendly if a friendly gets to actually, well, kill an aggressive, if that's of any consequence to your scheme of things. Now sounds. If the original sounds over here weren't quite enough, well, okay, so you get the idea, but anyway. Sounds. Okay. You just select the sounds like you did earlier. Now sadly I quite haven't explored that area and quite haven't gotten marks either. Okay, banks. As far as I can tell, you pay some kind of cost in order to get an item upgrade, like say emeralds and book to get a special enchantment from a villager. And that sums up that. Now, mob cloner. Let's say that you want to save John to any one of 1 through 9 tabs. You can organize them by these tabs, and say you want 3 for one world and a couple dozen for another world. You can organize them that way. Now, I've already got tabs 1 and 2 with some, and I'll put them in tab 3. And click save to save him. However, you can save them in a certain location depending on what you want. If you want him to be just for you to use, save him client side. If you want him to be public for, say, a friend that needs a certain NPC, okay, save him server side. Now let me explain the server side client side bit. Here is basically John. This is the client side tab. This is the server side. It's empty. If you wanted to spawn some other, well, entities, then you can just click here. You can also click this to turn whatever block you just clicked into a mob spawner for that, well, creature. You can even turn, well, have a mob spawner for John, but again, requires creative mode. So you get the idea there. Now, let's say that we want John here to be a cavalryman. let's go to tab 3, click here, and mount. Okay, that's how it works. Now let's say John here did everything we want and we want to get rid of him for some reason. Just click the delete button and yes. And sadly that version of John is gone, but we still got John over here, so don't worry. Okay. That seems to be it as far as the mod. Now if you want, you can listen for some other details. A friend of mine named Blake requested a shout out. I met him while visiting a church called Cloverleaf. He seemed like a rather nice guy from what I saw, and I just wanted to say, hey Blake, if you're watching. Now, the update for the channel. I was working for several weeks on this one parody for a song from a movie. And I think it'll be obvious based on the title of the song which song it is. So, thank you for watching, y'all, and I hope you have a good week. I'm sorry for the late publication of this video. It just took so long and all.